My name is Robert Falconer-Lett, Member of Parliament for Winnipeg Centre. Here I am with the former Member of Parliament, Joy Smith from Winnipeg. I was just, Joy, we're here today because you put on an event for the Joy Smith Foundation to raise awareness about human trafficking here in Canada.
Yeah.
And you've done an awful lot of work over your career as a parliamentarian for 11 years. Why, a lot of people are kind of surprised that this exists. They probably also think there's a lot of myths surrounding it, that it won't happen to them. But, I was just wondering if you could describe the situation that we currently have in Canada, what's being done, and what we could do more.
It can happen to anybody. Traffickers do it because they make a lot of money. They make between $260,000 to $280,000. I said on the video $240,000 to $260,000, but the new stats are showing they make more money than that. And what they do is they target our youth. The youth can come from anywhere, from any family, from any ethnic group. And how they do that is they gain their trust. So they'll give them gifts. They'll tell them they're beautiful. I had one case where a trafficker she became his girlfriend almost overnight. She was a young 14-year-old girl. And he said, your body is so beautiful. You can dance go to a strip club and dance because it's art. So they talk them into these kinds of things. Well, she made a lot of money the first night and the second night, and the third night she was gang raped and sold to another guy and trafficked. And so human trafficking happens in every city, and it happens under the public radar screen because when people talk about young girls or young boys servicing men or women sexually, they say they're bad girls. They've gone off the track. But what has usually happened, in fact, with underage kids, is someone has groomed them into convincing them that, sexual services are something that they owe their boyfriend and they need to get money for something. The boyfriend usually runs short of money, or the boyfriend says, you have to pay me back for all the gifts I've given you, and they threaten them and they beat them. And it's a mind game. It truly is a mind game. Mm-hmm. And they pick on the very vulnerable young people because they're easy to intimidate. They're easy
it's
to...
the same thing for child soldiers in war-torn countries.
Exactly. They convince them, and then the girls start to play the part because the so-called boyfriend expects it, but also because she's afraid.
Now, one of the huge issues is obviously not only supply, but also it's the whole issue surrounding people who buy this sex from many of these people, from these young girls and these children, and people who are forced into this trade.
Today in Canada, buying sex is illegal, and that came in through Bill C-36. So the buying of sex is illegal, but it's not illegal for a girl to advertise that she will give sexual services to somebody. So because the Charter of Rights shows that anybody can set up any kind of business as long as it's not harming somebody else, so they term not harming somebody else. But they can do that. But actually the buying of sex is illegal in Canada today. The problem is we don't have enough police resources because there's lots of other crimes. We don't have surveillance. We don't have resources in other ways to be able to target a lot of the Johns who are lurking around trying to find the girls. There's just not enough. There's so many crimes that we deal with every day.
So what are some of the penalties under the new law for buying sex then? Because, you talked about it a little bit, how, for instance, prostitution, how you talked about how prostitution, how some people, the women before were penalized and they could be put in jail, and the Johns could take a course and get, pretty well off scot-free for having essentially raped someone and paid money for it.
Yeah. There's a variety of things that happen right now, and I know police forces have dealt with it different ways. One particular case in Winnipeg was the police officer went to the person's home, the John's home, to hand in the subpoena to come to court. Of course, his wife was at the door, and she had no idea what the hubby was doing, and so things proceeded from there. So police officers are doing things in a very creative way to stop this, because often the Johns don't tell their wives they're going out to visit girls, and it happens the other way around too. There's women, but mostly men, who go after young girls. And so the penalties do, depending on what they can catch them doing, the penalties do vary, but it is illegal now in the country to buy sex.
Do you have any final words for the people who might be watching this online?
I think education is our greatest weapon about human traffickers. I think if our youth know that they're being targeted, and if they can see the signs of someone immediately becoming their boyfriend and telling them how beautiful they are, and then sort of persuading them to do things they're not used to do, and dancing in strip clubs and lying to their parents, and they give them big gifts, they make them feel like they're on top of the world. Well, no 14-year-old has a boyfriend that can afford to buy her a very expensive gold chain. And when parents see that, they should question that, because often that's what the traffickers do. And if they go to very expensive restaurants that, is really out of the they can't afford those expensive restaurants. Well, what is the boyfriend doing? Because most 14-year-olds who have, or 15-year-old, don't have boyfriends who can afford that kind of stuff. Those are two keys.
Education, I guess, but mostly for the young people.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to recognize the signs and to be able to see it, what's going on around them. But do the schools do that very well?
Well, I actually have, I'm about to launch my school program, grade 8 to 12, how to recognize human trafficking. And I not only talk about present-day human trafficking, but I talk about Canada's wonderful history to combat human trafficking. And it started way back in the 1800s. So students, when they hear it, can be very proud that we live in a country that has pushed against human trafficking. Of course, now human trafficking looks different. It's not the trafficking of black people from the U.S. to Canada to be sold like it was in the 1800s when Lord Semple stopped that by putting his bill forward. But now it is targeting youth for sex trafficking because they earn a lot of money out of it. And so the more the youth understand how the predators work, the more they'll be able to say that, I think I'm being groomed. And you know what's so interesting, Robert, is before I released this school program, I went all across the country in every province, every single school I went over a year's time. Every single school I went to, bar none, some of the girls came up and said, I think I'm being groomed. And it was reported to the school administration, and the school administration reported it to the police.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you very much, Joy, for all this information. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tapoyaki kitwam until next time. And I hope anyone watching online enjoys this video and shares it with others and goes to the Joy Smith Foundation.